My advice for anybody that might be struggling with depression right now is that you have to be patient with it. And it does suck. Trust me, it sucks. And nobody's going to understand it but you. You're the only person that's going to understand how much it sucks. And I know that your situation isn't the same situation that mine is. It could be worse. It doesn't matter. It's not a game. It's not, oh, who's got the worst situation. No, it sucks. It could be, you could have the most fantastic, from externally, everybody thinks you have the most wonderful life in the world. But for you, it hurts, and that pain is real. And whatever people say, it is something that is in your life. But there is hope, and you can get out of it, and it is likely going to be something that you'll have to deal with for the rest of your life. I'm not going to make any promises that it'll go away and that you'll never be depressed ever again. But it can get better. And it can get fantastic.
Welcome to a Face Project podcast.
Hello?
It's just pure life. It's pure
And my
innocence.
mom
it's
is a
pure
writer. My
gratitude.
dad.
So I ended up in America.
I am an adopted Korean
and
have been all my
To me,
life.
it's a perfect blend of science and creativity.
I was screaming, I will live over here till I die.
Hey everyone, welcome to a Face Project podcast. First person stories, first person meaning we edit out whoever is conducting the interview and you get to hear from storytellers firsthand what they have to say. First person interviews from around the world that we transcribe and put in our quarterly magazine along with portraits of all of our storytellers. So if you're interested in that, head to afaceproject.com. My name is Natalie Jennings. I'm your host. This is episode number 32. In today's episode, we're going to hear from Adam, and this story was recorded almost 4 years ago now when we were sort of kicking things off and the project was very, very new. I thought it was a tremendously brave and informative and excellent story, and so even though we published it in our old format, we sort of reworked it, and that's the story we're bringing to you today. It is a heavy topic. We're talking about suicide and depression, and I'm not sure if that's something appropriate for kiddos or not, depending on their age. So definitely something to consider as Adam talks about his battle with depression and later his times confronting possible suicide. I just wanted to pull up a couple of things to lead into this story. I don't want to take too much time before we dive in, but on the National Institute of Mental Health page, there are a number of resources if you think that you may be suffering from depression. There are symptoms and explanations. There's a number of different types, from persistent depressive disorder to psychotic depression, seasonal affective disorder, bipolar disorder, and a couple of others. So it's not sort of a blanket thing if it's something that you're wondering that you have. I will sort of read off a couple of signs and symptoms of depression, and this is clinical depression. If you listen to Adam's story, if any of this resonates with you, you can head to www.nimh.nih.gov. That's the National Institute of Mental Health. There's also a number of resources if you Google depression help. So here are some of the major signs and symptoms that I'm coming up with on the National Institute of Mental Health's website. And again, if you have been experiencing some of the following signs and symptoms most of the day, nearly every day, for at least 2 weeks, you may be suffering from depression. persistent sad, anxious, or empty mood, feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, irritability, feelings of guilt, worthlessness or helplessness, loss of interest or pleasure in hobbies and activities, decreased energy or fatigue, moving or talking slowly, feeling restless or having trouble sitting still, difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions, difficulty sleeping, early morning awakening or oversleeping, appetite and or weight changes, thoughts of death or suicide attempts, aches or pains, headaches, cramps, or digestive problems without a clear physical cause that does not ease even with treatment. So I just wanted to put that out there. One of the things that didn't make the cut that Adam and I talked about was just how widely misunderstood this condition is. And it affects nearly 3 million people, new diagnoses every year. And that's a low estimate according to the Mayo Clinic. And one other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is if this is resonating with you, we did an episode a while back with a gentleman named Chris who did an excellent job telling his story with bipolar disorder, which is also classified under the depression umbrella according to the National Institute of Mental Health. So if you would like to head on back through the archives and hear Chris's story, it is episode number 11. He's got some great insights on mental illness. And again, if this resonates with you, do check that out. I'd like to jump right into Adam's story today, so I don't want to talk too much about what's going on, but if you are interested in the podcast and finding out more about our magazine or seeing photographs of all of our storytellers, head on over to afaceproject.com. There you will see photo essays of each storyteller, photo essays from around the world, and there's a big archive of all of our past episodes. So again, Chris's episode on bipolar disorder is episode number 11, if you're interested in tracking back to that. And we also have our online store where we transcribe our interviews and stories and take the photos and put them in magazine form. So if you're interested in ordering one of those, all of it's at afaceproject.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and we're on Facebook at A Face Project. Without further ado, let's jump into this story. Here's Adam.
So my name's Adam Klein, from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I came from a pretty good family. They always treated me well. We lived kind of in a rough neighborhood. So when I was kindergarten, somebody was killed in our front yard, stabbed to death. So I didn't actually see the murder, but I saw some of the aftermath of it, and it kind of really had a pretty big effect on just my outlook on life. So my parents realistically kind of decided after that it was probably time to move. So they loaded up the truck, and we ended up out into Prior Lake, which is kind of a suburb about a half an hour south of the Twin Cities. There was all this farmland, and there weren't a lot of people my age in the neighborhood. So I ended up becoming really good friends with somebody that lived about 2 or 3 houses down from me. I would go over and visit, and we'd hang out, and he was a little bit of a troublemaker, but everybody at that age kind of was. We were probably about probably started hanging around at like 10 years old or something like that. He didn't have quite the background that I did. He didn't really have a loving family that I had, and his parents were pretty abusive. They would abuse him when I was around. They would abuse him. He'd come over sometimes just to try to get away from him. His dad was just a complete monster. And I don't know what his background is, but that's just kind of the way that he acted. And his mom she was kind of a drunk and checked out all the time. Well, eventually one day, he had a sister. She had some developmental issues. And one day I was over hanging out at his house and found out that he was abusive towards her. Not to go into any of the gory details, but it was pretty bad. Pretty bad what he did to her. I went home that night, and I never talked to anybody about it. I was kind of in like a state of shock, sort of just from being traumatized for what happened at his house that day. So while I never talked to him about it, I never hung out with him. I mean, we weren't close after that. We weren't friends after that. I didn't go over to his house or anything like that, but I just kind of put up a wall. And I never told anybody, and I didn't tell anybody for years, but it still affected me, and I had an incredible amount of guilt for not doing anything, and I became really depressed as a result. I wasn't interested in hurting other people, but I was pretty into hurting myself. I would hit myself with hammers, or I would just take horrible risks. I got into a bunch of car accidents because I didn't really, I just wasn't interested in stopping at stoplights sometimes, or, getting into drugs pretty heavily. And I got arrested a couple of times. I even got a felony at one point. And nobody knew what was going on. I mean, my parents knew something was going on, and I was going in for psychiatric testing, and I was on medication for a little bit, but it didn't do anything for me, and I didn't like it, so I stopped. But they didn't know why. They didn't know the background. They didn't know what the trigger was. They were just thinking I was just another average depressed teenager. When I graduated, I found a perfect opportunity to get out of the situation, just get away from that neighborhood and just get away from that life and restart. So I went up to college at the University of Minnesota downtown or whatever. And I ended up getting married, bought a house, got a job, kind of started going down the whole, this is what you're supposed to do with your life routine. And it still affected me. I never dealt with it. And I was still terribly depressed. And I thought at the time that, well, I'm just a depressed person. At this point, I didn't even think about the event that much anymore. At this point, it was just so ingrained into my personality that I was identifying as, I'm just a depressed person. This is just the way that I am. Some people are like this, and this is just the path that I'm on, and this is who I am as a person. And I thought, well, it's victimless. I mean, it's just me. I'm the one that's being hurt by this, so, whatever. It's my issue, and if I want to deal with it or if I don't, it doesn't matter because it's my thing, and I didn't think there was any point in dealing with it because I thought that this is just who I was. But it did affect people. It affected my relationship. It affected just how difficult it was to be married and to somebody who didn't understand what was going on. And it came to a head one year, and she didn't want to be with me anymore. We were going down different paths, and it was one of those things that we were looking at each other and we were like, if we met today, we wouldn't even be friends. As much as she hated me, I hated myself worse. And it just, it didn't work out. So she left. And this is the thing about depression. It's like this weird internal, like every fiber of yourself is screaming out for just relief from this pain that you have no control over, and it doesn't really feel like there's even really a source of it sometimes. It's like this ingrained pain that just doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't fix anything, and for me, I wasn't working through anything. It was just kind of there, but it's not sadness. It's a completely different experience and emotion that it'll just destroy you from the inside. It's absolutely oppressive. So I moved and I got an apartment. It's a couple blocks from the lake. It's kind of a nice spot. I wanted to be around people. I didn't want to be alone. I mean, my ego was gone. My identity was gone. All I had left was this abyss, this depression, and staring into it, I didn't want to deal with it anymore, and I thought, well, there's only one exit from this. I'm not going to miss anything. Look at my life. This is absolutely stupid and pointless, and there is nothing that's going to ever come good out of this, and this is the person that I am, and this is the way that I am, and this is nothing that I'll ever be able to escape from. This is an unwinnable situation. I cleaned my apartment. I'd spend like an hour or two every night cleaning, and it looked like a museum. It was so fancy and special and sparkly in there. It didn't really help too much. Depression got worse. I was like, I hated my job. I hated my life. It seemed like everything was just over. So one night I decided I was gonna kill myself. I was going to hang myself from the ceiling fan. I didn't want to, draw attention. I didn't write a note. I just wanted to do it. I just wanted to get it done with. And I just thought that this is where it needs to go. So it was kind of in the spring, and it was getting late at night, and I remember it really pretty vividly, and the sun was coming in, and it was everything was kind of reddish, and I got everything set up, and I was kind of laying up on the floor, just kind of looking up at the fixture, and kind of just thinking like, okay, well, this is it. And I was at peace with it. I was like, yeah, no, this is totally what I got to do. I'm not even anxious about it. This is going to be the thing. This is the only real thing that I can do. And this is the part where people, you can have your own opinions about it, but there was a voice in my head, and it said to me, "You're not here to fail." And which was something that my ex would always say to me. She would always be like, "The only thing you're good at is failing. You're never going to really do anything with your life. You just fail at things. That's the only thing you're good at." So this voice was different, and it was saying, "You're not here to fail." And I said, I kind of talked back to him, like, "What are you talking about? That's all I do is I fail." And its response was, "Just go to sleep and wake up tomorrow." So I thought, why not? I can kill myself tomorrow as easily as I can today. So I got up off the floor and woke up the next day, and I felt better. And I was like, well, I guess I could kill myself today, but I was going to work instead. So I got on the bus and went to work. I want to say it was like the day after. I was getting on the bus and going into work, and there was this girl that lived down the street from me, and I'd talked to her a couple of times before on the bus, and she invited me to a church service that they were having, and I thought, well, yeah, okay, I'll do this. I was thinking more about, like, just the voice and how, well, maybe this is kind of like a divine intervention or something like that. Like, I don't know you're not here to fail, but okay, we'll try this out. So I started to go, and things started to get better. And it wasn't like it was overnight. And it's not like today I don't have depression. But I started going to therapy, and I started to really take a serious look at my past and all the things that I was guilty about. I mean, everything that was going on in my life that just kind of steamrolled out of just an acclamation of baggage. But it started to make sense, and I started to grow as a person, and today, I mean, yeah, I still get depressed, but I keep things into perspective, and it's not as bad, and it's shorter, and I found different ways to deal with it. So when things are going bad, I can handle it better. I've built up. It's like having a mental strength, and a person can recover. I ended up 2 years ago being reacquainted with somebody from my past, and we ended up getting married. So I'm married again today. I have a house again. It's better than it's ever been, better than I ever thought I would even imagine. And my wife's pregnant right now. And I think about all of this. I mean, even little things in life. I had a really fantastic plum once that was just like, I still think about, like, it was the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my life. I mean, it's just the little things. There's so many things that are out there that you can find pleasure in. And none of it would have been possible if I just phoned it in, or if I just called it off. But people can do it. It's not an unwinnable situation. The pain that I went through at the time didn't make any sense. And the experiences that I had, as much as they hurt, and as much as I felt guilt about them, were necessary. And you think, what are you talking about, you crazy bastard? That's not necessary. Nobody should have to go through that kind of stuff. But I feel like today I'm a stronger person, and after going through it, I can help others. And with the depression, for everybody that gets past it, they can be a champion for somebody else. Turn into something positive. Go help somebody else. Go, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be some grandiose thing. Even just having empathy for somebody else, even just being there to understand somebody else and understanding kind of pain that they go through, that has a value. Do whatever it takes. Do whatever. If it helps, do it. I'm not going to say anything. If medication's your thing, do the medication. If it isn't your thing, if you find something else that's your thing, if painting, go paint. Oh my God, go paint. Do it. Do whatever it works. There's not like a universal solution. I mean, if there was a universal solution, it'd be easy.
Thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed Adam's story. And again, if this resonates with you and you track back to Chris's story, episode number 11, and you think that it's something that you need to explore for yourself, there are a number of resources. One that I forgot to mention in the beginning of this episode is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. That's at adaa.org. And that is a place for a lot of resources surrounding these issues. Again, check out afaceproject.com if you are interested in checking out our magazine. Photos of storytellers. If you'd like to see photos of Adam, those will be up there as well. Just look under our episodes, episode number 32. If you'd like to order or pre-order the next volume or issue of our magazine, you can do that there as well. All of our information is there. And please sign up to our newsletter. You'll join our community, get discounts, information, and coming to you not very often. We're not going to spam you, but that's all at afaceproject.com. This episode was recorded and produced by Daniel Zamzow and me. Music for the story by Daniel Zamzow. Music for the episode by Nctrnm. You can find them on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/NCTRNM. Layout and design by Aaron Woods and photography by Natalie Jennings. Thank you for listening, everyone. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
And I wouldn't take back any of my history, and I wouldn't go back and erase things and be like, I'm just going to live a normal, uneventful life. Because the beating that I went through ended up making me so much stronger that I feel that I'm a better person for it. And this is something that I would have never even thought of or considered back when I was depressed.